Hello, everybody. Hello, Bettina. How are you doing today?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Eric. I'm doing great. As I said to you just before we went on air, I'm sewing madly, but I really am loving it.
Hmm.
I realize that productivity, that creativity
Hmm.
I've just realized how important it is to me. Like to sit around idle like I was before,
Yeah.
um, really was not good for me. And I feel like I'm much happier with something to do, uh, and not as a distraction, but as a part of the being conscious, and being fully in life, I think. So that's been fun. So yeah, so I'm making lots of Christmas presents, and I can't post them on Facebook because the people that are going to get them are on Facebook, and there's a couple that might guess. Um, that it's for them. So it's like, I can't post it. But yeah, I'm really having fun with it, and it's so much less expensive because whenever I make something, there's always a piece of fabric left over, and so I just go through my scraps of paper scraps of fabric, or end pieces, remnants, whatever, and I go, yes, I could make this out of these pieces of fabric. Fantastic. So it really does cut down on the Christmas expenses, and I love making gifts. I really do. Um, so yeah, it's been fun for me. It's a fun, hanging out in stores and waiting in lineups and all that stuff. That's not fun for me, not at all. But creating and making, and yeah, that's fun for me. So I
Hmm.
do Christmas the way I like to do it,
Yeah.
and I save money in the process. So it's good.
That's kind of what we were talking about before the show, and we've almost touched on the third show topic of today when you bring up productivity and how good it feels to be reminded sometimes. And I feel really much the same way that it's all about balance. And sometimes I know that I've been in places in my life where I'm just like I don't want to do anything for 2 weeks, and you get to like day three of that and you're like, oh my goodness, I want to go do something now, and to be fortunate enough to be able to ask ourselves what it is that makes sense for us. And it really does tie into our main show topic today about, we're 10 days away from Christmas, and we were talking a little bit about Christmas shopping and how we have amended Christmas for each of us individually. But to determine what is best for you and what level of productivity, what level of busyness, what level of extroversion, what level of introversion, what level of commitments in our, we talk about this show, talk about this on this show a lot about taking the time to decide what feels best for you and then creating a life out from that, rather than trying to fit into the I don't know, the pre-selected roles that we would we're shamed or we feel like we need to live up to, heading into the world, and more deciding from inside out while still making more money than we spend as really the only thing we need to uh, honor in deciding how we're going to step our life. Um, I think it's really interesting. And I think being 10 days out from Christmas, and who knows when you're watching this video, but it's really important. I think Christmas is one of the big things and one of the really big empowering places in my life where I've decided to do what feels best for me. Christmas is it's kind of a microcosm of society in a way, because there's so many expectations at Christmas. You have, these days you have two, three, four families that you're going to visit, and you have expectations and traditions, and this is the way they do this, and we have dinner this time, and Christmas Eve is this family, and Christmas Day is this, and then we open the presents, and then we have breakfast before, and there's so many expectations and so many traditions that are set out, and I know it can be overwhelming. Perhaps if you're a hardcore extrovert, I mean, it's just the greatest time of the year. But and if you're anything short of that, I think that you feel a little bit of anxiety and a little bit of, uh, you know, it almost becomes a big chore at a time when we've really decided as a society to get everybody off of work so that we can all spend time together. But I think there's ways that we can ask ourselves, how can we do it best? And in a way, if we can communicate, I mean, first of all, we have to decide with ourselves. We have to come to a peaceful solution in ourselves and understand it in ourselves. And then we're going to be able to lovingly communicate that to the people who we need to, in this season. And that goes from commitments we're going to make and hours we're going to spend at places and who we're going to see and when and what kind of presents we're going to give and how much we're going to spend and what the expectations are going to be. And I think it's a really great microcosmic exercise when it comes to the grander society of work and children and parenting and relationships. That can be sometimes more difficult to challenge. And I think Christmas provides a real opportunity that if you are unsatisfied with some aspect of feeling compelled to do something that you're not 100% behind, to take that time, think about what it is that you want to do and be able to communicate that and then amend how you're showing up during this time. And I think it's a great practice and it's a great opportunity and it's a great way to alleviate stress at a time when most people have time off and we should be enjoying it, but we don't as much as we should.
Yes, that was a lot. I was saying to you beforehand, we've pared down this Christmas. I was never one to go really overboard anyway, but we've pared it down even more. There's too much stuff. There's too much stuff. I started to read something about debt, people in debt, and how it's gone up. The consumer debt or whatever. I don't know what you call it. I don't know all those terms. I started reading. I was like, oh, okay, this looks interesting. I started reading it and I didn't understand it, so I backed out of it because it was all this terminology that you kind of had to know in order to read the article and understand it. So I think the sort of gist of it was people are going more and more into debt. That's kind of what I got from it. And why? Because society puts certain standards out there and what will people think of me if I don't spend? Because, take for instance, like I know we're coming up to Christmas, but a good example is weddings. Weddings are big business now. And
Yes.
Allison's friends are getting married and I hear them talking about they're going to a wedding and getting a gift. And the gift should be you should pay for your meal basically in the gift. So if the meal is $100 a plate, two people going to a wedding should be giving $200. And I said, I haven't got that kind of money to buy a gift or give someone $200. I have to stick within my means and my budget. And so this is what's happening. Society is sort of shifting and the amount of money that we should be spending on any given thing is going up and up and up and up. I mean, Peter and I were just talking today about to go to he was looking at something with his English football and his team. And he said, I wouldn't be able to go to a game nowadays. And I said, it's like that everywhere. To go to the theater, to go, if you want to go to Stratford, or if you want to go to a theater in Toronto, if you want to go to a baseball game or a football game or a soccer game or a concert, it's minimum $100 a person. That's, to me, I say, that's for the elite. because it's certainly not for me. It doesn't suit my budget. And, I would imagine that people go into debt if they really want to do it badly enough. But the point is, it's an hour or two of entertainment. And how many hours did you have? Like, we always look at it in terms of how many hours or days did you have to work in order to make that $100, right?
Yeah. And the argument is it's more than make it. It's save it after taxes, disposable income savings.
Yes, disposable income, exactly.
Well, I am
exactly.
making $100 in the morning. Well, that's not true. If you save $400 a month on average, it took you a
Yes.
week of work to make
Yes,
$100.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's all, you have to put it into perspective.
yeah.
Um, I think things, I think, if you can't afford to buy things, then give of yourself. Okay, I like to make things, so I'm making things, and some things are not costing me really anything because I bought the fabric and made something else and had fabric left over, so I can use it to make all sorts of crafty things that, in the end, come out looking great. And I didn't have to put any more money out for it, is what I'm saying. Um, I saw this video on Facebook the other day, and it was this woman who, I don't know if she owned the store, if she was the manager of the store, but this gentleman was in the store, and he was shoving stuff in his jacket and in his pockets and, in his pants and, shoving all this stuff in. And one of the employees, he started to leave the store, and one of the employees said, this guy, we saw this guy, he's like gonna steal this stuff, right? So when he left the store, she went out and she spoke to him, and she said, I, you've taken some property from the store. You've taken things from the store, that you're stealing. I need to ask you for those things back. And, is everything okay, sir? And he's like, yeah, 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 right. And so he then eventually started to take all this stuff out of his pocket. She got a card and all this stuff. She goes, I don't want to send you to jail on Christmas Eve. I, you know, so please give me the stuff back so that I don't have to send you to jail. And he
Hmm.
started pulling all these toys and all sorts of stuff out of his coat, putting it in the cart. And she said, is this for your children? And then he just broke down and started crying. And, it was Christmas Eve and he had no money to buy Christmas gifts for his kids. And he was in a bad way. And she said, well, the last thing I want is for your children to not have their father there on Christmas Day. So she took him in the store with her and she bought all the stuff for him. She spent like $95 to buy all this stuff for this man. And then there was another woman in the store who gave him extra money to go and buy food for Christmas dinner. And I thought, this is how desperate people get because they're trying to live up to, the standards that society has created, and commercialism being a big one.
Hmm.
And I know I talk about it a lot, but I think the whole idea of minimalism and why do we need this stuff? We don't need it, we want it. It's filling a void for about a minute, and then we toss it aside and go in chase of the next thing, to fill us up, to make us feel better, to make us feel loved, to make us feel good enough, whatever reason. But it's not clearly not working, because if this thing that I wanted to buy was going to fill me up, then I wouldn't need to buy anything else because that thing filled me up.
It's such a
So,
hole in logic. I know.
yeah, yeah. So, if you can't afford it, give of yourself. Like, if, you know, um, can't say this too loud, but if someone says to me, what can I get for so and so? And really, there's nothing, I say, what would be really nice is take them out for dinner or have dinner with them or spend time with them or whatever, but do something with them, because I think that is more of an expression of love than, some expensive gadget wrapped up with a bow.
Hmm.
Um, if you don't have the money, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with gifts. I buy gifts, I make gifts, I give gifts. But what I'm saying is, why does it have to be thousands and thousands of dollars laid out at Christmas? Um, for what?
It's all, yeah, it's all just make.
Especially, sorry, especially if you're going
Go ahead.
into debt over it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I think, the sort of clincher there is that you're spending all this money and you're going into debt over creating this bigger than life Christmas when spending time together is really the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just ultimately, if you break it down, it's just all make believe anyways. Like it's like Christmas, even if you are a devout Christian who wants to celebrate the supposed birth of this guy named Jesus, uh, that's not what that day is about anyways. Like it's not about eating a ton of food and giving gifts and tinsel and everything. I mean, that's just all, it's all been put on top. Like it's got nothing to do with it um, in the first place. So that there's no reason to, and that's if you are most hardcore and you believe this is your faith and you want to celebrate it, but what it's turned into is not what it began as. Um, and so you don't have to. And I think it's a great thing, that you came across this story about household debt or consumer debt. It's important that it comes up this time of year because I do think people like this guy and like everybody. I've been there. I've spent $75 on a gift when I was going to be late on a phone payment or something. Like I've been there. I felt the shame. I felt the need to do it. I felt like, oh Christ, they're going to get me a $75 gift or so. We say 50, but I know it's going to be 75, so I got to spend 75. Um, I've been there, and it felt awful, and I don't, um, so it's important that this debt thing comes up and it reminds people, because I don't think anybody who you love that you're going to give a gift to, if it's going to cause you to go into debt or pay 20% on your credit card for the next 4 years, because it's easy to say, oh, 75 bucks, I'll just pay it off. But if it's the $75 that gets you to 5,500 on your credit card, you'll be paying 20% on that for years, if you're carrying a balance like that. So it's not just 75 bucks, it's like 75 bucks plus 20% until you finally someday arrive at the day where you have enough to pay off your credit card debt. And the person you love, who you're giving this, like, you're giving this gift to, that they probably, that isn't worth $75 to them, lest they would have bought it for themselves. So it's already a less valuable than $75 gift to them. They would never want you to buy it for them if it made you take on credit card debt. I mean, if the truth was out there, nobody who loves you would want you to do that. Nobody wants you to buy them a DVD they can download for free because they like Family Guy or they like, some Jane the Virgin. Nobody wants the box set, that you put this money in and put it on a credit card. I mean, it's silly. We need to be honest. We need to be honest, And yeah, I mean, what really does say love, and I know people have different love languages, but my God, saying, hey, how about on January 12th, just me and you, we go for coffee, $4, and we'll spend 3 hours and we'll like listen and like love on one another. Like come on, let's think. And, even the whole gift giving thing, I know that you still participate, but for me, it's been something, you don't have to do it. It's not a rule. You don't go to jail, and people don't love you less, especially if you're able to communicate your beliefs earnestly and honestly. And, and if you can assure people that this is truly what you want, that you don't want to do it anymore because it doesn't feel good. Because I've been in that spot where I got to spend 75 bucks and I'm like struggling to find inspiration to make this seventh gift I have to get on Christmas. You don't have to do it. And, once they feel assured that you're all being honest, they don't give you a gift. And it's like, oh, for me, that works. I don't, gift giving is my 5th out of 5 love language. And it's not my true for everybody. And some people might love it, but, none of it is mandatory. None of it. But what is mandatory is that we make sure the people in our lives who we love know it. So it's not about a $75 gift on Christmas. It's, how about an I love you text out of nowhere to somebody you don't normally say I love you to? There's ways that we can more intelligently convey what this whole thing has kind of been constructed to convey. And don't think for a second that the big corporations haven't co-opted this for their gain and not necessarily for ours.
well, it's not for our game because we're going into debt over it. So there you go.
That's right.
But yeah,
That's right.
that whole idea of the expression of love being the key. And, I mean, yeah, there are people who gifts is a number one in their love
Mhm.
languages, but it's not the top of my list. Um, I think acts of service, I think it is.
Yeah, that
That's a
would
big one
surprise
for
me.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
if you don't know these, there's five. It's the five love languages. And who writes
yeah,
it again? Do you remember who writes it?
I don't remember, but I think if you Google
Five love
love
languages. Yeah.
languages, you'll get to it. It's pretty well known.
A small book,
Um,
it'll blow your mind, and you'll
yeah,
just so many ahas.
yeah. I didn't actually read the book, I don't think, but I certainly read up on it. And I think there's lots of information on the website that you can get
Mhm.
without having to buy the book, people.
There you go. Right? Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So it's just restructuring our mindset and our whole idea, because the whole idea of Christmas has been restructured anyway for us, and we
Yeah.
followed along like
Not
little,
for us, but for
well, no,
yeah.
but it has been done and we follow along like sheep.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
like, oh yes, this is what we do now. We never had Black Friday in Canada before, but now we have it. So, oh
Right?
yes, we must all run out to the store and get the good deals.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Slowly.
So yeah, it's I just enjoy my little I'm enjoying sewing, and I'm enjoying um, knitting and making my chocolates and giving gifts of myself, and signing Peter's name on it. No, he's, he's
So
he's sitting over there laughing.
yeah. Yeah. Well, Peter's like me. I know.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes,
fine. Just
but here's the thing. He may not be making it, but his contribution is he's been
that's
making
right.
dinners and cleaning up the kitchen
That's
every night. And I said to him, God, I don't know the last time I did the dishes. I'm getting spoiled.
right.
So that's his contribution. I
Yeah.
mean, it's indirectly we all contribute because we're all working together. And I joke about it, but it's not true. I mean,
Yeah.
he does contribute a lot, a lot. And sometimes I think I
Fine
don't
print.
contribute enough. Yeah, it's in the fine print.
Right.
But sometimes I don't feel like I contribute enough, but I do, and it's about contributing in your own way, not necessarily, might not always be the one that's contributing financially. You might be the one that's, doing the background support, like, all the domestic duties, where other times it's the other way around. And that's really how we work here. So, um, it's just his term to be domestic since he's got the time. And I'm working to get things done for Christmas. So yeah, it's all, you sit down, you put your heads together, and you figure out what you can do that suits your, dare I say, budget. I'm not
Yeah.
sure that many people
Yeah.
have a
That's
budget
true.
these days, but yeah, this is really important.
Yeah.
So, and then the pressure's off, and then you can enjoy Christmas. But
Yeah.
the stress and the running around and the um, got to have this and this and this and this. It's like, as I get older and more, I don't know what the word is, aware, I'm like, how important is it to have that particular thing for Christmas? Not the chestnuts, so I won't give up the chestnuts, but but there's lots of other
What?
things I go, really? Like, we have this big Italian dinner on Christmas Eve, and one of it's like 13 courses, right? And it's all fish and there's no meat. And one of the courses is, or one of the things we have is mixed nuts in the shell. And we've been doing this for years. It's part of the deal. And you sit around after with your glass of wine and you chat at the table and you crack these nuts and eat them and stuff. But the last few years, you wouldn't believe how many things of nuts I've thrown out, or how many hours I've sat there after Christmas cracking open all these nuts to use them for something else. And this year I said, you know what? I'm just going to put a bowl of mixed nuts already shelled on the table,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll probably get eaten way faster than the ones in the shell. It's too much work and
Yeah.
mess and mess.
Yeah.
So it's really, we do things by rote. We do things because we've always done it, and I think we never question it. And we're so afraid of changing it for some reason, because that's our tradition. But you can build new traditions by looking at what you're doing now and maybe changing it up a bit and
Yeah.
seeing where you can do it differently, where it might be more cost effective or less stressful and less work. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and ultimately, I mean, these things that sometimes we protect, despite them not really making sense anymore. I mean, how much of a percentage is having those mixed nuts in the shell part of the actual tradition? I mean, we can all point to it as something we've always done, but is that really I mean, we're talking single percentile, how much of the tradition that is. I mean, the tradition is we all get together. I mean, that's the lion's share of the tradition. Who cares about the nuts?
Yeah.
And that's, I think it's just a great opportunity on Christmas. And you say you and Peter put your heads together, to do it on your own, to do it with your partner, to do it with your family, to talk about what makes sense. Because what doesn't feel good. I mean, yeah, when you come up with what makes sense for you, and it takes all the stress out of Christmas. It takes all the stress out of the things that we have to do. And now Christmas is just, like I said, a microcosm of other things in life, and this can be repeated in other areas of life. But once we decide what is right for us, it makes it so easy just to go about and do it and be loving and in a harmonious way, be happy to do it. It's not even work. It's enjoyable. It's just part of the process. It becomes part of the tradition that you don't resist it. But what causes the problem is the dissonance. It's I need to go to the store to get this fruit cake because this is the one that I always bring, and they'll be disappointed if I don't bring this one. And it's that step on Christmas Day or the day before, or the checklists of having to do things that we don't even know why we're doing it anymore. We've just always done it and we haven't questioned it. And then, then you're trying to get 4 people if you got a family, 2 people if you have a partner, try to get everybody in lockstep to try to do things. And it's just take an hour. Sit, talk about what you like about it, what you don't like about it, where we can do things easier or less, or at less cost, either financially, physically, emotionally, commitment, socially. How can we get our needs met in ways that make more sense? And this is like, I mean, this has been one of the greatest tools in my life, is be able to, for me, I love going on walks and doing it. I love sitting in a coffee shop with a book and doing it. And you just constantly retool your life, and it's just so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not tired, and you age well, and you're happy, and it's easy to laugh, and nothing bothers you because you're living your life your way. And all you got to do is make more money to spend, and don't go into debt. Don't don't go into consumer debt, please.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because that'll stress you out. Yeah,
Mm.
and it's that whole idea that we have traditions and we don't even know why we're doing it, which just gave me a really good idea. Um, in the no, no,
Good.
seriously, in the Jewish tradition, for Hanukkah, they tell the story of Hanukkah and um, why they have the food they have and why the candles lit, and the whole story of what happened with the oil. And I don't know the whole story because I'm not Jewish, but I do know that that's one of the things they do is when they have their Hanukkah celebration, they retell the story. You know why you're doing it. I think
Yeah.
that's a really important part of it. So now I want to go and look up why Italians have all fish for dinner on Christmas Eve, and then I'm going to tell the story at dinner.
And it might be I mean, you might get down a rabbit's hole with that because, the whole reason why eating meat on a Friday was a sin had nothing to do with Jesus or Christianity. It had to do with economics and the
Yeah.
ruling class at the time.
Yeah, it may or may not. But
Yeah.
either way, I think it would be a good idea to share it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is why we do it.
Yeah, let's be honest.
Yeah. So
But let's not be honest with like Uncle Frank after 7 drinks. That's
no,
the Christmas goes bad.
no, just not Uncle Frank.
We have to be honest with ourselves, create a thoughtful narrative, and then be able to communicate it effectively. Not at 8 o'clock
Exactly.
on Christmas Day with Uncle Frank.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how would you feel about finishing us off with a meditation, Bettina? We've used up
Absolutely.
more than our half an hour already.
All right, let's do that. Let's close our eyes and take a deep breath. And as you breathe, connect into yourself. Go deeper into yourself. Feel yourself rooted deeply to the ground, a part of all that is, part of the earth, part of those around you, part of the sky, seas, part of everything that exists. Feel yourself at one with all of it. And feel as you stand in this oneness, that loving presence that is the root of who you are. And from that place of loving presence, make your choice. Make the choice of how you want to celebrate this beautiful season of peace and joy and rebirth, the birth of Christ, or whatever holiday you celebrate at this year. Really get the feeling of it. Put the shops and the money and the presents aside for a moment and really connect with this feeling of joy and peace and sinlessness and the absence of guilt, because we live with far too much guilt. We live with far too much idea of attack or retribution or vengeance. Let's put that aside and let's act from the expression of that loving presence that lives within us all and is what connects us to each other and what makes us one on a level far deeper than anything that this body or this life can show. And when you're ready, wiggle your fingers and your toes and bring yourself back to the world.
Well, thank you for everybody for watching. Gary Chapman is the author of Five Love Languages.
There you go. It's amazing what a little meditation will do. Brings you back to the knowing.
Well, if we don't see you before Christmas and you watch this in a timely fashion, then or happy holidays, whatever. Just enjoy life and enjoy loved ones, whatever.
I celebrate Christmas, so I say Merry Christmas. But if someone said Happy Hanukkah to me, I'd be okay with that.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Have a great week, everyone.